tuning for channel difference.
Unable, so unable to join as a panelist.
Six four four. The passcode is 0847776.
08.
0847776. And panelist, but I'm gonna hear you stuff like
I'm at Campbell.Gould.
yeah, I got it. Okay.
I'm in, but I'm by myself. They're in, but no picture.
Good evening, everybody. I just want to thank you for your patience due to technical difficulties. We are starting just a little bit late. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you all for your patience and technical difficulties. I apologize for that. The city of Campbell is no longer requiring face coverings be worn inside city facilities. However, all are welcome to wear a face covering should that make you feel more comfortable. Should health directives from the County of Santa Clara or the Centers for Disease Control change, the city will comply. And I'll call to order this regular meeting of the City of Campbell City Council for Tuesday, August 16th, 2022. This regular city council meeting is conducted in person and via telecommunication and is compliant with provisions of the Brown Act. The city council meeting is live streamed on channel 26, channel 88, the city's website, and on the city's YouTube channel. Madam Clerk, can we get a roll call, please?
Councilmember Gibbons. Here. Councilmember Lopez.
Here.
Councilwoman Landry.
Present.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Present.
Mayor Resnikoff.
Here, thank you very much. I'm going to ask everybody if you would to join me. I'll lead the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. There are no special presentations or proclamations. There are no communications and petitions. There's nothing to report out from our earlier executive session. We move to oral requests. This is the portion of the meeting where people may speak on any item not on the agenda tonight. And for not on the agenda, you get 2 minutes. I do have a speaker card from Richard Culbertson. If you like, come on down. You'll have 2 minutes to let us know about what's on your mind.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am a member of the Campbell's Friends Library, and I would like to ask of your attention as to what is happening with the Measure O for the police. They're going to get a new building, which they need. When you're strapping 35 pounds on you and you got to go out and weigh in doing 120-pound push-ups and whatever else. And secondarily, what's happening with the library measure? The city, Santa Clara Library shows artist renditions of what they think they're going to get, which is 10,000 pounds of glass around everything out there. And then there's a rendition that I find on the website for Campbell that shows it more of a homey environment from the outside, not knowing what the inside will be. But the essence is, could there be something given out that is understandable for a semi non-technical person? What is happening? Are we waiting for the COVID to stop? Are we waiting for the money to be spent already? You've already shown that you've spent a lot of money for provisions of environment. And that's, you know, taken away. Now, does that mean a little later on you'll be doing the same thing again? But I surely do want to take my lazy bones now that the grandkids are in school, yay! And enjoy being in this environment where I can read the newspaper. And unfortunately, pull my hat down around my nose and sleep. So if you could speak to that in the future or make it more clear to a neophyte, I would appreciate it. And I'm not speaking for the Friends of the Library. I am an individual. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We can't respond right tonight, but I'll ask staff. We have your contact info here, and city manager will ask staff to follow up with gentlemen and get you some more information and perhaps get some more information online for everybody. Thank you very much. Madam Clerk, do we have anybody else wishing to speak in the chamber or online?
We do not.
Okay, we do not. In that case, we'll move to council announcements. Mayor's announcements. City Hall is open to the public for in-person services Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. For your convenience, online services including permits, business license applications, and virtual appointments are available online. You may visit the city's website at campbellca.gov to view information for all city departments and services available online. All are invited to attend the annual State of the City address on September 22nd. Please join me as I discuss the city's recent accomplishments, our resilience during and after COVID, and information on upcoming projects, including Measure O. The State of the City address will be held at Orchard City Banquet Hall on Thursday, September 22nd at 6 p.m. Doors open at 5:30 p.m. Please RSVP to Mayor State of the City at campbellca.gov by Monday, September 19th. The 12th Annual Caregivers Count Conference is a free virtual conference for families and friends caring for an older adult. This year's conference is a 4-part series virtual event. The dates are September 10th, 17th, 24th, and October 1st from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. The topics include self-care, strategies for dementia caregiving, long-term care, and fall prevention and home safety. Again, the conference is free and the registration is available at caregiverscount.net. Live music is coming back to the Ainsley House this fall with a series of 4 concerts with talented musicians. Fall Garden concerts run from September through November. Latin Heat will perform September 8th, followed by Tony Lindsay on October 23rd and Brian Ho on November 13th. Registration is required. For additional information, please visit campbellmuseums.com. Visit the Campbell Express Library for outdoor children's story time, songs, and more each Wednesday at 10:30 a.m. in the outdoor courtyard behind the Heritage Theater, across from the Campbell Community Center office. Back to school means sharing the road. As the school year begins, please remember to keep an eye out for young students who are walking or bicycling to school. Pay attention to school zones, avoid distractions, stay alert, take extra precaution when you're behind or approaching a school bus, and be prepared for more traffic and for motorists making sudden stops. Help make it safer for our students to walk and bike to and from school. The Santa Clara County Library District website provides online elementary, middle, and high school resources to help students with homework, to prepare for tests and assignments, and to boost their skills in important subjects. For additional information, please visit sccld.org. And lastly, in honor of the Labor Day holiday, City Hall offices will be closed for business on Monday, September 5th. Police and emergency services, though, will remain open. And that's that. Thank you. We're going to move to consent calendar, which is items 1 to 9 that we can take as a whole. Unless somebody wants to pull an item, I will ask to pull item 7. Is there anybody from council or the city or staff would like to pull another item? Seeing none, we'll ask for a motion for items 1 through 6 and 8 and 9.
I'll move the consent calendar with the exception of item 7.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Bybee, second by Councilwoman Landry. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Rosencloff.
Aye, thank you. And I pulled 7. 7 is acceptance of a donation from the Campbell Police Foundation for $2,700 to support our police department. I pulled it only to thank them individually, thank the foundation separately from the consent calendar for everything they do for helping to fund items that aren't necessarily in our budget, but to enhance our police services and police safety. So just wanted to express my thanks to the Campbell Police Foundation. Any other comments or a motion?
In support of your comments, I move item number 7.
I'll second.
It's a motion by Council Member Gibbons, second by Vice Mayor Bybee. Can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee,
Aye.
Mayor Resnikoff.
Aye. So thank you. We'll move to public hearings and introduction of ordinances. Go to item 10. And this is a public hearing to consider the application PON 2020-64 of Charles Bronitsky for general plan and zoning map amendment to allow a portion of 1336 Parsons Avenue to change in land use designation from low density residential, less than 6 units per gross acre, to professional office and zoning designation from R16 single family residential to PO professional office in order to facilitate the transfer of a portion of a commercial parking lot built on a residential property to an adjoining commercial property located at 1308 Parsons Avenue. The applicant is also requesting review and approval of a conditional use permit with site and architectural review to allow the conversion of single family residence to a commercial use and parking modification permit to allow a reduction in the number of required parking spaces for property, located at 1308 Parsons Avenue. Our presenter is Stephen Rose.
Excuse me, can I make a request? We have problems with our assisted listening devices tonight, and we need to make sure that everybody speaks very loudly.
Absolutely. Thank you very much. Stephen?
Sounds great. So thank you and good evening, Mayor Resnikoff and members of the City Council. As just noted, the 10th item on tonight's agenda is for 1308 and 1336 Parsons Avenue. So the project site comprises two properties, 1308 and 1336 Parsons, which are located on the east side of Parsons Avenue, south of Camden Avenue. And the properties abut single family residences to the south. So to broadly summarize the project history, in 2017, there was an application of a building permit, which led to discovery that a portion of the parking lot of 1308 Parsons Avenue is built over 1336 Parsons, and that the property had been converted to a commercial use. In 2018, the council may recall there had been a former GPA general plan amendment as authorization to proceed, requesting a change to professional office land use designation of that same portion of land. And in 2019, the City Council authorized a general plan amendment to facilitate change instead to neighborhood commercial. And rather than pursuing that second authorization to switch to neighborhood commercial, the applicant has actually defaulted back to the original authorization to professional office. So the applicant's proposal includes a general plan amendment to allow a switch of that small portion of property from low density residential to professional office, a zoning map amendment changing from R16 to PO or professional office for that same sliver again. It also involves a conditional use permit with site and architectural review to allow the conversion of a single family residence to office, and a parking modification permit to allow a minor reduction on on-site parking where 15 spaces would be provided, 17 are required. So as the site has already been used for office uses, the applicant's proposal would serve to formalize existing conditions while resulting in enhanced on-site landscaping and a new sidewalk on Parsons Avenue. And in consideration of the applicant's proposal, staff is recommending that the City Council approve the applicant's request. And that concludes staff's presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Is there any questions from council for staff? Councilman Landry?
Yes. I understand you spoke briefly with the city manager tonight. I had originally had some concerns about the parking layout, and I was told that you did bring on someone to do a CASP review to look at the configuration.
That's correct. So the city has a contract with Susan O'Brien, who is a certified CASP specialist, who had done a review of the site for site accessibility and access considerations.
And also that they are asking for some level of a hardship.
So that's correct. So the applicant what we try to do is we try to catch as many things up front in the entitlement process as possible prior to the building permit submittal. In this particular case, understanding that you are converting an existing residential building to converting it to a commercial use, we took a look at all the accessibility improvements that might be required, and we kind of tallied them up and calculated what the total amount of those improvements would be if they were to fully convert all existing structures to be fully accessible. There's a hardship exemption, which stipulates up to, I think, 20% of the valuation of the improvements you're doing, and which is reviewed by the building official and was found to be appropriate in the circumstance for the improvements that you're seeing on the plans.
So what hardship are they claiming? Is it interior to the building?
It's effectively all the exterior work. They're covering all the exterior work. So anything that's required to getting from, say, an accessible parking spot or from a city sidewalk up to the front door they are fully compliant. The hardship exemption is requesting waivers of things like a phone inside the building. There's a phone requirement, and there's also like a water fountain requirement. That those are the two features which will not be upgraded due to the hardship exemption.
And that's been granted to them.
I think formally it's granted as part of the building permit application, but we had tentatively prepared a hardship exemption form as part of the entitlement process so we could identify what those details would be.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for staff? Seeing none, I'll open a public hearing. Stephen, maybe you can help me. I have 3 cards here, but do we have a representative of the applicant here?
Joining us virtually is Charles Bronitsky, who's the applicant.
Let me see. And here's. Okay, I don't see any attendees on my list. I don't see him. Is he on the participants? Let me see.
Charles, could you raise your hand if you'd like to speak?
I don't think he's on the call. He's not on the panelist and there's no attendees at all. If he's intending to speak, I want to get him on and have him speak first.
Understood. I can email him a link to tonight's meeting. I think there were some technical challenges early on which held up some virtual attendance. So I'll make sure he gets a meeting invitation right now.
Okay. So we can start then with the cards. We'll start with the public. We'll have 2 minutes to speak. First card I have that came in, I think, was Joe. I'm sorry? Joe is, I'm not sure if it's Charvel, like Charvez. I wasn't trying to read it. Thank you. Come on, you'll have 2 minutes.
I spoke with Mr. Rose, and quite candidly, I think most of my questions are already answered. It would have been nice to have this 2 minutes to utilize to speak after the Mr. Bronski, if he was here, so I could rebut whatever he was saying. If there was something there, other than that, I don't have much more to add.
Okay, thank you very much. Gabriel, is it Taub? Sorry, I apologize for that.
That's okay.
You have 2 minutes.
We come in because we have problem with the parking in that area. Unfortunately, what they showed to me in here is like this, that you almost cannot see the plan that they have. I don't know how many parking space we have right now, and I don't know how many more parking they want to create when they want to do this. And I would like to see that, because we come in and talking about the technical problems that we have. For a meeting like this, I believe that everybody needs to be super prepared, that nobody has excuse for anything. So I would like to know what is going on with that parking space. That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. And the last card I have is Al. Is it Hyde? I'm 0 for 3. Sorry about that. You have 2 minutes.
Okay, my main concern is parking. I live across the street, kitty corner there on Sharp and Parsons, right on the corner, 256 Sharp. I've been there 53 years. I know the lady that owns the property. We've been good friends in that. I have no problem with people running a business, but my concern is how many offices are they going to have in there? How many people are going to be working there? If you got 4 offices in there and you got 3 to 4 people, I know they're not commuting to work together. They've all got a car. Where are they going to park? They're going to park in front of my house, block my gate so I can't get my garbage cans out. I've had this problem for years. I don't have a problem with it anymore because I blocked them in. I gave them 2 inches to get out with my truck and my car, and they don't park there no more. But the rest of the neighbors got to put up with this. And that's just my main concern, is on the parking, of how many offices are going to be in there. I know we got H&R Block there. We ain't had a problem with them. We had hairdressers in there before. I didn't have a problem with them because they work different shifts and stuff, but I don't know. is there any set deal of how many offices they can have in there?
Okay.
So that and the parking is my concern.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you very much. And Madam Clerk, do we have any other cards either in the chamber or I don't think I still don't see somebody online, I don't think.
We have no other cards.
Stephen, are we going to hear from the applicant or?
Yeah, there's some technical difficulties that we're working on resolving. The applicant, Charles, will be joining us momentarily. We could just wait maybe 1 minute.
Sure.
Mr. Mayor, may we ask Stephen in the interim
Right.
to pull up the project plan, site plan proposed? I think it's sheet or attachment 10E and one of the drawings in that to show the proposed layout.
While you were out, Stephen, we had questions from the residents relating to the number of units there, the number of employees, the parking, et cetera. So I would assume that you have the documents for that, and also that was discussed at the planning commission.
I do, and while I'm pulling up the plans, I can address that. So it is a conversion to an office use.
So hold on, we have Mr. Brunitsky online now. He says hands up. I see your hands up. He's muted. Mr. Brunitsky, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, if you can speak as loud as possible, and you'll have 5 minutes if you'd like to talk about the project or raise any issues. Go ahead, please. No, I have you here. I don't see you muted, but I don't hear you.
No, there's a bunch of other discussion going on that I can hear, but hold on. I think I understand why. Hello, I'm sorry. My apology. I tried to get onto the Zoom, but I kept getting some technical errors. So good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council. The background on this matter, my name is Charlie Brunitsky. I represent the owners. It's a mom and pop. They used to own both of the properties in question. It's where one of my clients grew up and her parents lived. The property's been kind of operated the way it is now for as long as anyone can remember. And it was just realized when the house was sold and the neighbor came in to do an addition that the part of the driveway into the commercial portion was really part of the residential property. And so over 4 years ago, we started trying to get through this process. We're here today, which for hopefully, and this is our third time in front of you all, we're here today, hopefully to end the process. We're not seeking any type of change of zoning. The parking that we're seeking for would be to serve the professional office. It's served that area for decades without any real issues there, and there are already restrictions. We're doing major improvements to the area around the property, new sidewalks, improved landscaping, excuse me, some other items, but it's not going to become a commercial property, which were the concerns of some of the residents before. So it should still be pretty small. It'll be businesses, just like the H&R Block. It's a professional office building. And one of the reasons that there's no longer a hairdresser there is because they don't qualify within professional office. It's a much smaller qualification. So hopefully we will grant our application. Again, pretty much what we're asking for is just to rezone that one little strip. That's really what it sort of amounts to. That's been part of the parking lot for decades. And hopefully we could get that. There is sort of one related item. Back in 3 years ago, back in July of 2019, the city and my client signed an agreement and we put up a $50,000 deposit. And that deposit was in the event that we didn't get approval, or if we walked away in the middle of the project and the city had to go and correct the lot line and all that. None of that happened. And so hopefully if today you approve it, you will also put in whatever order or resolution you pass, a release of our $50,000 back to us. The city should have a copy of the agreement. The section I'm talking about is 2G for the city attorney, so the city attorney can find it if they're looking for it. But again, thank you for your time. Very much appreciated. I hope that we could put an end to the 4 years of this project and everyone will be fine with it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Steve, we normally have the applicant speak first, and in fairness to the gentleman that spoke, if they like a minute or so to come up and if you had a comment based on what was said, I just want to give you the chance because normally we would go in the order of the applicant first, and you would have heard the comment, and I think Mr. Chavez, you mentioned it. Okay, thank you very much. Just want to make sure everybody got their say. Okay, so thank you, Mr. Brunitsky. Do we have anybody else that wants to speak? Madam Clerk?
We do not.
Okay, so we're going to then close the public hearing, bring it back to council for discussion. I'm not sure who was first.
Liz was.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Sorry, I didn't mean to have my light on. I thought, thank you. I thought it would be helpful if the site plan showing the new parking proposal would be helpful, but it may or may not be. I see it if I'm reading the right one.
I can, and
Can you show that?
It's sheet A2 that I think I'm looking at correctly.
Hold on a second.
I can zoom out real quickly and show. So this is the proposed, the new parking plan and site layout and configuration. So definitely parking was a consideration on this project. And we explained the parking modification in really kind of two ways. One, when you have a conversion of, let's say, a residential building like this, doesn't really lend itself the most efficient floor plan layout. So from a per code perspective, we're really looking at a deficiency of 2 spaces. And just given how the space is laid out, it's not as efficient as a typical office building would typically be, right? So one of the arguments that we were presenting was that because of the unique circumstances of this particular building and the way that it would be more than likely used by office users, it would result in a lesser parking demand than at, say, a brand new office building that was built to suit. The second thing I would want to mention is we did include as a condition of approval, and if I can go back to the conditions of approval here, standard language indicating that effectively in the event of a parking complaint with this parking management condition, which I'm zooming in here on the screen, in the event that 3 or more verifiable complaints are received by the city regarding parking, the community development director is effectively empowered to limit the duration, reduce the permitted occupancy, or limit the hours of operation, or require greater staggering of what pretty much the activities are there to address that. So the core concept here is to say that there is a parking complaint. The director would be able to modify and limit, say, the number of office occupants within that tenant space. And if I may, one more comment I would like to add is that a lot of the historical parking concerns with this particular tenant space and use had been associated with a ground floor hair salon, which would no longer be permitted as part of this entitlement. We're pretty much converting this site from historically kind of like an office and a personal service use activity to an exclusively professional office activity.
Thank you. Councilwoman Landry?
Oh,
I'm sorry.
I just wanted to request, could you put the slide back up, Stephen, that had the overview of the parking? I think it was the, maybe the location map. It was an early slide in your presentation. Oh, was it existing? Yeah.
Let me just go back.
Well, I wanted to look at the existing, so I got a better.
So here we're showing both the existing and the proposed site condition.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Councilwoman Landry?
Yes, Stephen. So the question was asked while you were gone of how many parking spaces do they have right now?
I could compare against the existing plans. I believe it's something closer to 15 as well.
Of what they have now?
Correct. So we could look again to the, if you give me a moment, I can pull up that sheet of the plans because we do show and cross compare existing against proposed. So there's 17 spaces with the existing parking configuration. So we're not reducing the number of spaces on site.
You're going to 15.
Oh, I apologize. We're correct. As a correction, we are going down to 15, but the existing parking spaces occur not necessarily on the property. They overhang the public right of way. So one of the things we're also correcting is we're bringing those parking spaces on site where currently their bumpers are overhanging the property lines.
Okay, can you bring up the new site plan, please?
So, and again, just here's the comparison point against the existing and proposed. So here we're seeing the existing with the total count here indicated on the 17th space and the proposed scrolling down. Here's the 15 with the spaces being captured on site.
Can you zoom in to the area on the below the handicap space and in between the building? It looks like there's a cable. It says GA right there and a bollard. Is that out in the middle of the parking lot?
I believe that there is a bollard there. It serves for a variety of reasons. I think it's also to protect the power pole, which is occurring in that area. So you're seeing a 10-foot public utility easement that spans through the middle of the property. I believe this bollard is a on-site improvement. Yes.
Okay, I don't see how that's going to work. You have a handicap parking space and you have an access aisle and you have someone backing up and you're going to have a bollard freestanding out in the middle of the asphalt with a guy wire and a pole.
Right. I would indicate, I mean, so we ran this through, there's a turning template software that indicates maneuverability of a vehicle. So typically for a 90-degree stall, we require 25-foot backup that bollard wouldn't provide. But based on the turning, I forget the name of the software which we use, indicates that this can be accommodated on a turn, and effectively you back up, and by the time the car rotates to make the maneuvering, it is able to clear.
Probable or possible. I think it's on your turning template, it probably works, but having a pole out in the middle of the parking lot to me seems like someone's going to hit that going around the corner. Okay, so I do appreciate you doing the CASP review and the ADA assessment. I did have some concerns, so I do appreciate that you had a certified professional review that. I'm concerned about the parking loss. You're going down 2 out of 15. I don't know what percentage that is, but there's nowhere off street to park in that area unless you go around the residential street. And last time we were here, numerous people showed up concerned about the parking. So I'm going to cite the agenda packet, page 9 of 11 of the report. It says under conditions of approval required, that at the discretion of the council, an additional condition of approval may be added to limit the number of employees or occupants in the office building at this point. And the part that you showed us was that in the future, if they have complaints, you can limit occupancy. How can you limit it after it's already built and people are already used to that occupancy? What would be the mechanism to lower occupancy?
It would distinctly be a challenge, which is why we're indicating in the report that if the council feels it's warranted, they may impose an occupancy limit as part of the conditional use permit as a condition of approval.
Now,
correct.
yeah, but what you had cited earlier was you said if there's 3 complaints, the TDM, that the planning director could then reduce the occupancy, which I see as a big problem. How do you give it to them and then take it away later?
Well, by the condition of approval, it's providing the ability to limit the number of occupants, but without a lot of clarity as to the number. So if the council felt as if it was warranted, again, to indicate a specific number, say matching the number of occupants to the parking spaces or some number greater thereof, they may certainly do so as part of this action.
Okay. Does anybody have any other, because I'll make some more comments.
Okay, Councilmember Lopez.
Yeah, Stephen, thanks for addressing the parking issues. We also had, and you touched on the occupancy, but we had questions come up specifically. Well, you stepped out for a second, about what information do we have about, who's going to occupy, how many people, it's types of business, to the extent that we have any of that information. I was wondering if you could speak to that.
We don't. It's best viewed as a spec office building. So many office buildings which we build and entitle, we don't impose a, say, occupancy limit on them. It's actually rather atypical in the city of Campbell. Most new office buildings are just parked at an office standard. In this particular case, you know it's coming in at two spaces under the standard. Again, it's kind of an atypical building because it's not exactly perfectly laid out. You got weird staircases and things happening in the building. But yeah, we don't have a stipulation as to what the new tenant might be or its occupancy. All I could indicate is that there's a current H&R Block that occupies the second floor.
Councilwoman Landry?
If no one else has any other comments.
Okay.
So my two main concerns are someone's going to hit the pole, the utility pole, that there should be some provisions around there at the base, maybe some concrete curbs or something. Follow your turning template to lay out the path of the car, because I do see that pole is going to get backed up and hit. The second one is I want to recommend to the council to consider that we reduce the number of occupants now and reduce that so that we are not short the 2 parking spaces, that instead of having to wait till we have a bunch of people complain and then come back later to reduce the occupancy. I think that opens us up to some issues later. So I would ask for my support from my council members.
Councilmember Givens.
Thank you. Interesting challenge for a lot of reasons. One, to address Councilwoman Landry's comment on the ADA stall and the backup. I would suggest that it would be an easy recommendation to increase the angle of those last parking spaces, so to make the turning radius, backing up radius easier, because it's a one-way circulation. And I think that would help significantly for your issue, which I support. As to the occupancy, I would offer a little bit of a different thought. I can see all kinds of complications of trying to solve this after the fact. However, so much has changed with professional office buildings, even the H&R Block, for example. Many people now do everything online. They don't come in. So the traditional parking demand of 1 for every 200 square feet or 100, whatever it was, is probably excessive now. So I'm inclined not to penalize this project. I'm okay if somebody would like to put in, a 4-hour parking limit or something like that to move cars along so people just didn't park. But it's a tough enough project. They've worked really hard to solve all the problems. And I'm not convinced that the parking is as significant an issue now as it once might have been. So that's my 2 cents for the moment.
Councilmember Lopez.
I concur with that, and I'm certainly sensitive to the parking concerns, but it actually sounds to me like from the new layout that it could even be a slight improvement over the way that things are now. That's gonna clear some things up. I want to point out that I get the issues with trying to limit occupancy after the fact, but there are a lot of other provisions in the section that Stephen highlighted for things that could be done that are other options for that. So I don't think we would just be limited at what certainly could be a challenge. I mostly just worry about the precedent. If this is not really something that we've done before, of saying up front that we're going to limit the occupancy, that seems dangerous to me, and a little bit more of a blunter tool than I'd like to see us use in this case.
Can you clarify? I'm having a hard time hearing with your mask on. Are you saying it sets a precedence by limiting it right now on the occupancy? Because
Yeah,
it
it
says in
sounds
the
like that's a
report,
very unusual step to take before the project is entitled.
but it says in the report that if they decide you get too many complaints, they will limit it after the fact. How do you do
Which is a
that?
separate process. So one, which is a separate process, and two, the report doesn't just talk about limiting occupancy after the fact. There's a lot of other steps like limiting the hours. It lays out 5 or 6 different options that the city could take. So I think those would be adequate in my view to address the issues. My main concern is the precedent, though, from doing something before the fact preemptively, that I would be concerned about seeing elsewhere.
We've done that on other projects, so.
Okay.
Not a precedent.
Let me just comment. I would agree with Councilmember Lopez. We're talking about assuming there'll be a problem and taking care of it when there are teeth in there that can take care of it later. Maybe a little more difficult is what you're saying, but planning puts requirements in all the time and puts compliance in all the time. So.
But they're asking for parking exemption
I
of the
understand.
2 parking spaces, so they're already acknowledging that they're short on parking.
Right, but they're changing one of the uses. It's probably the worst use, the salon. So we're getting away from that in and out type thing with the salon. So there's a trade-off. Other comments or Vice Mayor?
I would concur. I know it's a challenging site to develop, and I think that the current tenant, the hair salon or what used to be the hair salon would be more problematic for parking with the number of people and the number of stylists that would be at that location. So I am inclined, I recognize that there could be a problem, but I'm willing to address it should complaints arise.
Any other comments from council or a motion? Councilmember Gibbons?
I would make a motion that the city council take the following action. 1, adopt a resolution approving a general plan amendment to allow a portion of 1336 Parsons Ave to change in land use designation from low density residential, less than 6 units per gross acre, to professional office. 2, introduce an ordinance approving a zoning map amendment to allow a portion of 1336 Parsons Avenue to change in zoning designations from R16 single family residential to PO professional office. And 3, adopt a resolution approving a conditional use permit with site and architectural review to allow the conversion of a single family residence to a commercial use and parking modification permit to allow a reduction in the required number of parking spaces for property located at 1308 Parsons Ave, with the addition of a condition for the building permit process to revisit the angle of the ADA parking stall to minimize the potential for hitting the bollard.
I'll second.
So motion by Councilmember Gibbons, second by Councilmember Lopez. Just for discussion, Stephen, there was a question. The applicant had mentioned something about money that was put on reserve or so. Can you comment on what that was and if that's something we should be addressing? Or Bill, city attorney? I'm sorry.
Yes, the city did take a deposit to guarantee that this project would actually move forward. Any money that we're holding would be returned in accordance with the terms of the agreement. There's no need to put that in your resolution.
Thank you. I just wanted to check because it had been brought up.
I have a question before the
Sure,
motion.
sure.
The motion included a changing the angle of the parking space. What about protecting the telephone pole?
My motion is intended to have staff revisit the whole situation and see if there's any better solution such
Okay.
as changing the angle.
Because you only said angle, so it does include
Whatever is
evaluating.
the best.
But to allow them to decide how to best do
Okay.
it.
Just clarify, thank you.
Okay, so the motion was by Councilmember Gibbons, second by Councilmember Lopez. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Resnickoff.
Aye.
Being an ordinance of the City Council of the City of Campbell approving a zoning map amendment to amend the Campbell zoning map designation for a portion of 1336 Parsons Avenue from R16 Single Family Residential to PO Professional Office, file number PLN 2020-64.
Move further reading.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilmember Gibbons, second by Vice Mayor Bybee. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Resnikoff.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Mr. Mayor, if I may take just a moment.
I'm sorry?
May I take just a moment to make sure that the adjoining residents get contact information from the planning department on the process and contact information for if there is a problem, they have that information readily at hand.
Yeah, and we have their cards here too, so I can ask staff to reach out and provide that information from planning. Planning will do that. So thank you. And we have their names and contact here. Thank you.
Thank you.
But item 11 is a public hearing to consider the request of Nicholas and Andrea Key for property at 705 El Patio Drive to rescind the listing of a designated structure of merit from the Historic Resource Inventory. Our presenter is Daniel Fama.
Just one moment. Of course, technical difficulties. We'll just do this without graphics. So before you is a request to rescind the designation of a structure of merit, which is a type of historically designated property from the city's historic resource inventory that is located at 705 El Patio Drive. This property is in the R16 zoning district located at the eastern terminus of El Patio Drive. It was added to the historic resource inventory in 2012. And is an example of a Spanish colonial revival structure that was built in the 1930s as part of the Rancho del Patio tract. Last year, prior to consideration by the Historic Preservation Board for an addition to the applicant's property, came to staff's attention that some alterations to the structure had been performed either, if I'm recalling correctly, in early 2021 or late 2020. This include removal of the columns that form the entry of the building, application of a new stucco texturing, construction of kind of wing walls extended from either side of the house, and creation of a new arch feature over the entry. Staff required that the applicant fund preparation of a historic resource analysis by the city's historic architectural consultant, Mark Sandoval. Mr. Sandoval provided a very extensive review of the alterations in context of the neighborhood, basically indicating that the alterations that have been done to the home resulted in loss of historic value and recommended that the city consider removal from the historic resource inventory. He did indicate, though, in some circumstances, a structure can be converted back to its pre-altered state. That's generally not best practice in most circumstances. Based on those findings, staff did recommend to the Plan Commission and Historic Preservation Board the applicant pay a fee in lieu of requiring property to be restored. Ultimately, the Plan Commission and Historic Preservation Board both recommended approval of the rescission request subject to payment of a $5,000 in lieu fee. Therefore, both the Plan Commission and City Council, Plan Commission and Historic Preservation Board do recommend that the City Council adopt a resolution rescinding the designation of 705 El Patio from the Historic Resource Inventory subject to that $5,000 in lieu fee. Additionally, staff also does recommend that City Council add an update to the Historic Preservation Ordinance to the department's fiscal year 23 work plan. As noted in your staff report, this situation did bring to light the lack of a strong enforcement mechanism within the city's Historic Preservation Ordinance, such that there really are no good tools to prevent these types of situations from occurring in the future. So the idea is to work with the Historic Preservation Board and Planning Commission to strengthen the city's permitting requirements and then also create a mechanism to fine property owners who unlawfully alter or demolish their property, comparable to the way that we protect historic heritage trees. With that, I will close my presentation and take any questions the council may have.
Thank you, Daniel. Or questions of staff? Councilwoman Landry?
Yes, thank you, Daniel. I did have a conversation with the applicant today, and one of the things that we talked about was lessons learned. So one of the lessons we learned is that we don't have this heavy enforcement protocol that you are proposing. But the other thing was that notifying the people that are on the inventory list, and if that's something that could be part of this work plan with the HPB ordinance update, where we send out letters. I think there's 100 people on the list as a reminder, you're on this list. Here's what you can do. Here's what you can't do. And this should be disclosed in the sale of the home to the future person who buys the home. Is that something that can be part of this ordinance update?
Yes, and I would imagine too that given the few number of properties that we do have on the list, we would also want to take proactive measures to inform all the current property owners of any public hearings that would be occurring regarding changes to the ordinance that would affect them as well.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councilmember Lopez?
About how many properties is that currently on the list, Daniel?
I think it's 125. It's not very many.
Okay.
Scope of things.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Yes, apparently we all had similar questions. So first thing I had asked, might the city require a designation of significant historic structures be recorded on the deeds? So particularly when they change hands. And the answer to my question, so I believe I can ask this in this portion. The answer to my question is subject to a discussion with the city attorney. It may be possible to record a historic designation on the property title. So that would be something that might be part of this. The second question, let me ask. Oh yeah, might the building department have a checklist for all historic designated properties such that notice can be given about the status? The response I was given is that the city's internal GIS system used by building and planning staff flags historic properties already. And any inquiry by homeowners or potential buyers received this feedback when contacting counter staff. So we are also adding the historic layer to the city's GIS portal. That is available to the public. So their staff provided those answers to my questions along these same lines. So I was very pleased with all of that, in addition to what Daniel was just discussing. Okay, and then my final question is, in your report and in your speech right now, the applicant came forward for a building permit with the additions that they were proposing, but they did not come for a permit with the renovations to the facade.
Correct. So the stucco work minimally, including the alterations to the entry, did require a building permit. So had you submitted an application, that would have been flagged by staff.
It would have triggered everything. Okay,
Correct.
Thank you so much.
And Daniel, just a couple of questions along the same path that we just taken, but more specifically, you're gonna have to identify or notice everybody if there is a public meeting. But might there at a minimum be a notification going out when title changes hands on these properties, which can be looked up? And saying here are some contacts for you. Here are some people to contact if you want to do some changes. So give them the resources because the new owners may not know.
Correct.
It was a bigger problem in the past with the opt out and less with opting in. It's really only a problem now when they change hands. And the other piece of it is, can you look at when you change your processes and all that? Should someone want to rescind a designation? Is there any document that exists today that they can come to planning and just get to see, well, what is the policy? So there's absolutely no confusion of what you have to do. This is what it is. And so in the first part of my question, everybody acknowledges that they know what they have is historic. The second part of it is, if you want to ask to be rescinded, we have a policy for that. Make it so everybody gets a packet that pre-exists and everybody has the same information. Can that be something planning would control?
I mean, generally, again, the whole concept of historic preservation is to preserve these properties. So removing a property from the list generally seen as a last resort effort, and the way the ordinance is structured, generally limited to those circumstances where the property no longer meets the designation, the criteria for designation, such as this case. If a owner wishes to remove a property from the list, they do need to pay for a formal resource analysis.
Right.
And then that analysis finds that the property satisfies state or local criteria, then that can be a bit of a process to remove it from the list because it is a type of zoning control. I mean, it is intended to be challenging because that's how you do protect these properties since there are so few.
I guess what I'm asking is, we had a situation, it's a long time ago, where this was during the opt-out period. We noticed the property, but the property changed hands, but wasn't recorded yet in the county. So the notice went to the prior owner who did nothing with it. So there's a case, for example, when
Yes.
they had to know, the answer was you have to go to HPB, you have to pay something, you have to then go to planning, you have to go to council, at least something that would identify if they want to pursue it. And you may say it's been very hard for them to win, but there should be something, I would think, could there be something that they definitely can get that says, yeah, there is a process and here it is, and here's the steps you take and here's the cost of it.
Correct. I mean, and if we do record the historic DPR forms in the titles, and that's a disclosure item, so the new owner would be
Right.
informed by the real estate agent, and should they have questions, it would call the city. And I mean, any competent real estate agent also proactively contacts the city just to double check if a property is listed as historic.
Other questions? So no other questions. Thank you, Stephen. Open up to the public. I see the applicant, Nick Key, is here. If you'd like to speak, you have up to 5 minutes if you'd like to, and then we'll take other comments if there are public persons wanting to speak.
Thank
Go
you
ahead.
very
Go
much.
ahead, please.
Okay. First of all, thank each and every one of you for responding to the outreach from my wife and I over the past couple of weeks, and especially to the four of you that decided to speak with us in advance of this. As part of this meeting today, I would again urge a couple of things. One, please do open up for dialogue the events that happened in the timeline of those events from when I purchased the property to the alterations that I made and then informing of the city. I think once we get into that, there are, first of all, some variances from what the city is saying versus what actually happened. And not for any malicious reason, but I'm happy to clarify those things and provide my perspective. I think it'll probably, speak well to my best intentions of working with the city and trying to accomplish everything that I did. So please open that up for dialogue. I'm happy to answer any questions about that. In regards to the recommendation that's being proposed today, I also want to say I'm in full support of every part of it. So I'm not here to protest any of it. I'm here after a 12-month endeavor to come to resolution with you all. That meets the needs of both parties here. Those three different parts of the staff's recommendation are one, to rescind it from the property. Obviously, I think the staff's report and the agenda speaks very objectively to the alternative of, well, can this property actually be restored to what it was in order to regain its historic integrity and remain on the list. I would say on page 52, the very last page of that agenda packet that you have, it is again very succinctly and objectively spelled out, saying Mr. Sandoval, the city's historic expert, has stated that although the structure could be restored to resemble its original appearance, it would simply be a representation of the original. And so I think that pretty clearly states that it cannot be restored while regaining its original integrity, historic integrity. And so although that could be the case, it would arguably still lack the building's original integrity and historic value to qualify its listing on the HRI. He also concludes it's ineligible for continued listing on the structure of merit on the HRI. And moreover, maintaining a property that has lost its historic integrity on the HRI actually undermines the purpose of the list and dilutes the importance of the other registered properties. So happy to discuss that as well, but I think it's fairly black and white there. In terms of the fees that are being proposed, again, I'm not protesting those, albeit, the current ordinance does not actually, contemplate any specific fees for this type of event. I'm I'm a reasonable person. I understand that I made inadvertent missteps here and that there ought to be some penalty involved in that. I think the $5,000, considering the roughly 5,000 or more that I've already spent to get to this point today, is, in total around 10 grand, is really at the upper threshold of my reasonability, but something that I'm very much willing to concede to as part of the resolution here today. And finally, lessons learned. There are some things that I would be happy to propose, some things that I've spoken with you all about already. So I'm happy to, have that dialogue with you too. And then in terms of a dangerous precedent being sent here by, in some ways rewarding me, for those missteps that I made by coming off of the inventory, I think the recommendation to update the city ordinance with strict fees and penalties will really nip that precedent in the bud. I think it's, going to be in short order remedied by having a stricter code in place.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. We're fine. If we have questions, we'll let you know. Was there anybody else wishing to speak? I see you have Mr. Sandoval online, but I assume, Daniel, that's just as a resource if we need him, correct? Nobody else?
Nobody else.
Okay, then we'll close the public hearing and bring it back to council for discussion under a motion. Councilmember Lopez.
Thank you. I appreciate how long of a process it's been to get to this point, to boards and the council meeting, and so I appreciate the staff's work, the great report, and the applicant, and I think really good questions, all very productive. I think drawing out a lot of lessons learned to move forward. I would at a minimum support the recommended motion. I just wanted to put out my discomfort with the process and gauge others' feelings on it. But the fact that we haven't had a process, so absolutely support having that put on the work plan. I think that's going to be a really positive step, building on the questions and comments that have been made. It makes me nervous and uncomfortable that at one point there was a $40,000 fee being discussed, which seems excessive, and relative to that, $5,000 certainly seems more reasonable. My nervousness, I guess, just comes from the fact that staff could go through this work plan item and come up with a process and a fee schedule. And it may be higher, it may be lower. Presumably there's going to be more work done to find the appropriate amount. But it just seems arbitrary to me. And I think, and I'm sorry, I did need to state up front that I did have a discussion with the applicant, which was helpful to me to get some more context. I don't think this was done maliciously. We've had other cases where things like this have occurred, different contexts, but clearly we need to improve that process. So I'd like to explore moving forward with a reduced fee or no fee, just because of that potential arbitrariness that we could have once we have that work plan discussion. But appreciate the productive comments and attitude from everyone.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Thank you. A couple of things. One is I also thank you for reminding us. I had a conversation with the applicant and also with an adjoining neighborhood association. The neighborhood association's questions had nothing to do with this particular project, and I referred them to the Public Works Department. And then two, I appreciate the perceived arbitrariness that Council Member Lopez is speaking to. I'm a less stressed by it. I didn't ask Daniel, and you may not be able to answer this, but don't we have a penalty for people building without permits? And don't they run the risk of having to have the work undone for electrical and plumbing and all that kind of stuff and waterproofing?
Yes, I mean, there are some building permit fees, but they're relatively nominal. They're not really designed to be a deterrent to this extent.
Okay.
I mean, in the staff report, we basically protect trees more than we protect historic properties.
So that's something else we may want to consider making clearer, because there's an awful lot of illegal building going on. So to me, that's part and parcel of what's happening here. So I do think there's some precedent for having an assessment because of construction done without permits. So I'm supportive of the staff recommendation and the $5,000 fee. I appreciate the applicants working to find the right solution and the best solution all the way around and offering constructive information going forward. So I think that's a very positive experience. And I would offer one more thought, which is, I also asked the question earlier yesterday, today, whatever day it was, does the ordinance, the historic preservation ordinance need to be redone for objective criteria? And the answer I received, which I think might fit into some of the comments about the work plan, the future code updates can focus on creating more objective criteria for historic preservation properties and modifications and changes related that are not permitted. So I think that's kind of all comes together. And I would just offer that as an observation.
Vice Mayor Rybing?
Thank you. I also wanted to share that I did have the same concerns as Councilmember Lopez regarding the disparity in the fee from 45, what I thought was 45,000 to 5,000. And I think this is a good case of lessons learned by all of us, by the city, by the applicant, and short of having a process in place and codified to address the situation, I think the $5,000 is a reasonable assessment and a penalty in this case. And so I'm going to support the staff recommendation.
Okay, Councilwoman Landry?
Yes, thank you. I shared this with the applicant today. I want to say 40 years ago, when I was in college, we had a book that was called "What Time Is This Place?" And it talked about historic preservation, the pros and cons. And if we preserve everything, our community can stagnate and we don't move forward. But we want to preserve enough of our past that we know where we came from. We want to know what time and place certain neighborhoods were built, what were the architectural styles, what were the trees and the heritage nature of that. And so it's very important to me that we have a really good policy on historic preservation, specifically attaining to our list of 120 houses, and that we also notify people. I mean, part of the issue was he wasn't really clear to him what that meant to be a historic building or on the list. And yes, he did work outside of a building permit. He's learned his lesson. There will be a minor penalty. But I think it's very important that we move forward, that we do notify these people. You have a house on this list. Here's the parameters. And if you sell, you have to disclose this. Now, whether what Liz made the comment of put it on the deed or the title report, that to me in this update of the ordinance, those are the things that we should be looking at. We want to preserve our past. We don't want to preserve it to the point of stagnation, but we want to preserve it to preserve Campbell, our small town feel. And so people in the future can know where we've been. So I completely support this recommended action. And I think it's brought to our attention where we do need to update our ordinances and make it clear to people what we're trying to do.
Okay, let me comment. I see your, I ultimately support it as well. I would just comment that I don't think the numbers we got were arbitrary, and I'll tell you why. Because if the 43,000 was based on can you make it historic again? If we could make it historic again, then we'd be talking about that number and should we do it? But the reality is when you take something that's vintage, and I think I talked to the applicant, I think he's the example, he's a watch. If I take a vintage watch, remove all the parts, I can make it into a repro of that watch, but it's not that watch anymore. So I don't think that's something we can do. At the other end, the problem is if we went to zero, then we have no program anymore because everybody just do what you want. There is a fee to ask to rescind, and it's $2,560. If the penalty is $2,560 or less, nobody will ever ask to rescind. Just do what you want and pay the money. So it turns out a little less than twice that, a couple thousand more, 440 or so, I think is really reasonable. I think it turns out that's reasonable. It may be that when we go through the ordinance that they want to do something higher, there ought to be justification for it. But I think this is very fair. If it would have cost $2,560 to do it the right way, this is not unreasonable. I'm happy that the applicant is saying that's fair, and I think I can support that. I think it's reasonable, and it lets people know there is some penalty to do this, and hopefully we'll then codify it so it's better off. Did you have additional comments?
Yes, thanks. Thank you for those comments. I agree with you. My comment is very simple. The process, staff does have a good process. The historic preservation designation is in the GSI mapping, and when people come, and it was proven when they went to get the addition. So I think we've come up with a lot of good things to improve the process and make it better and try and prevent things. But the glitch here was a permit wasn't gotten. It would have been caught. So I just think staff didn't miss the need to have it. We're just thinking of ways of lessons learned based on this project, how we can do it better.
Okay. Is there a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion that the city council, one, adopt a resolution rescinding the designation of 705 El Patio Drive as a structure of merit, subject to payment of a $5,000 in lieu fee, and two, add a historic preservation ordinance update to the community developments plan fiscal year 23 work plan.
I'll second.
Motion by Councilwoman Landry, second by Councilmember Lopez. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Resnikoff.
Aye. Thank you very much. Your 12-month journey has ended. I appreciate your coming. I appreciate your time here 2 weeks ago and then coming back. So thank you. Sorry we inconvenienced you. Move to new business item 12, approval of MOUs and unrepresented agreements and salary schedules. And our presenter will be City Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of the council. This item's before you tonight as a follow-up to negotiations with 3 of the 4 collective bargaining units the city has, as well as resolutions that sets forth the salary and benefits for the unrepresented employees, including confidential and management employees. The resolutions before you tonight reflect the direction and authority given by the council in executive session. Also reflects the tentative agreements agreed to by those collective bargaining units this evening. Does include, as I mentioned, the unrepresented, confidential, unrepresented management and unclassified management employees as well. Each of the resolutions before you this evening contains either the MOU for the collective bargaining group, a resolution for the unrepresented, the salary schedule that will reflect the new salary schedules, and also the copy of the current personnel rules and regs that go along with those negotiations. It's staff's recommendation that the council authorize those resolutions as is indicated in the staff recommendation, the staff report. If it's appropriate and the council is inclined to do so, it could be an appropriate motion just to simply move staff's recommendation. I'm certainly available. I did want to recognize before we get into the discussion and thank the city's management team and those that represented the collective bargaining units in this representation. I do recognize a substantial amount of time and emotional energy that goes into this. And I want to congratulate both teams in coming to an amicable resolution in this proposal to the council.
Thank you. Are there questions for staff? Okay, seeing none, we'll open the public hearing. Is anybody in the public wishes to speak?
No.
We'll bring it back here. I'll just comment before I don't see lights on to thank staff for having this, moving this process along, and also thank all the labor units to get this done together. So we appreciate that very much. Are there any discussion? Otherwise, a motion?
I would just offer that I concur with your statements. It was really very important to have a mutual engagement by the various groups and the city administration to come up with the right solutions. And I'm very appreciative of all the effort that made that happen. So thank you to everyone, staff, at all levels of participation. And with that, I would make a motion that the city council adopt the attached resolutions to 1, ratify successive memorandums of understanding and respective salary schedules effective July 1, 2022 between the city of Campbell and the Campbell Police Civilians Employee Association, between the city of Campbell and the Northern California Carpenters Regional Council, and between the City of Campbell and the Campbell Municipal Employees Association. And 2, revise the current city council resolution impacting unrepresented confidential employees, classified management employees, and unclassified management employees. And I believe there was a desk item
There's a desk item, yes.
incorporating the desk item.
I'll second.
Okay, motion from Councilmember Gibbons, second by Vice Mayor Bybee. Did you have a Vice? Councilmember Lopez, did you have a comment first?
I did also just have a comment. I also want to recognize staff and the labor units as well, but it took real leadership to get to this point. And we had this is very close to the timeline that we wanted, considering we had the recess. And so I think this is really positive progress for moving forward, and we'll happily support the motion.
Councilman Landry, did you want to?
I just wanted to say the same thing, that I appreciate all the hard work and energy, both on staff side and on the bargaining unit side. And I think we've come to a good understanding, and I think it's positive for the city to move forward, and I'll go to vote.
I agree. Thanks to everyone involved. We have a motion, a second. Can we get a roll call vote?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Redekop.
Aye. Thank you so much. We move to item 13, proposed modifications to the Campbell Community Center building use policy. And my notes say Natasha, but it's not Natasha. It's Lauren. Welcome.
Sorry, it's me. Thank you, Cecil. Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and members of the City Council. My name is Lauren Merriman. I'm the Recreation Services Manager. I'm here on behalf of Director Bissell, because she's unable to be here tonight, to review the proposed modifications to the Campbell Community Center building use policy. The building use policy is designed to set clear policies and procedures and regulations for the public's use of the Campbell Community Center. Specifically, the banquet halls, gymnasiums, dance studios, meeting rooms that are rented on a short-term basis. The policy contains descriptions of these facilities, defines user groups and priorities, and provides rules and regulations specific to the short-term use of the Campbell Community Center. The building use policy was last modified and approved by City Council on June 9th, 2020, and the fees are reviewed and occasionally modified through the budget process annually. The fees included in this document were approved by the City Council on July 19th of this year. To briefly touch upon, next slide, please. Cecil, thank you. To briefly touch on the main areas that are proposing our modifications, the reservation process. In late 2020, the Recreation Community Services Department moved forward with the implementation of a new software system for registration and reservations. In 2021, when our department experienced a reduction in force, we implemented a new and streamlined process to reserve our facilities online. Prior to this, all reservations were done in person. The proposed modifications in this document highlight the process and steps involved to make a reservation request online, and details what the customer can expect during the reservation process. For number 2, the janitorial fees. During the annual review and modification of the city's fee schedule in April of this year, new janitorial fees were included as it relates to rentals at the community center. This allows staff to charge additional fees for gatherings of a certain size that serve food or drinks. We found that the presence of food or drinks create a bigger mess, which makes our janitorial crews have to work a little bit harder to clean the area up. So we plan to pass that additional cost on to our customers. For the reservation timeline, the Orchard City Banquet Hall, which is our largest space, is allowed to be reserved 1 year in advance. And our next largest banquet space, the Roosevelt Redwood Room, is allowed to be reserved 6 months in advance, which makes it difficult for customers that are trying to make smaller gatherings happen, be able to plan in advance for that. The proposed modifications change the Roosevelt Redwood Room to be the same timeline as the Orchard City Banquet Hall, which is 1 year in advance. For security, we did discover some inconsistent language in the policy regarding requirements for security for some events. The proposed changes intend to clarify that city staff will secure security on behalf of the rental client. And there's been additional language that has been added to clarify which events actually require security. Finally, there is a number of additional updates to formatting, grammar, clarifying language, and really just to strengthen the understanding for our rental clients about what we expect when they're in our facilities. The recommendation this evening is that the City Council adopt a resolution approving modifications to the Campbell Community Center's building use policy, making it effective tonight, August 16th, 2022, in coordination with the effective fee schedule. This concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it. Any questions for staff?
Yep.
Councilwoman Lantry.
Thank you. A lot of red lines in here.
Yeah.
This may actually be a comment for the attorney. On page 13, number 8, at the bottom of the page, it says smoking / vaping or use of electronic cigarettes. My understanding is that you can have the little things that look like cigarettes, but they're actually marijuana. Is that a definition that we should be using the word cigarettes, or is it clear that that means no smoking marijuana either?
I think that's clear. Under both our smoking ordinance as well as under state law, you're not allowed to smoke marijuana or vape marijuana any place that you cannot otherwise smoke a cigarette.
Okay, I just, because I saw the word cigarette and I thought, wait, what about everything else? Okay. And let's see here, let me make sure I don't have another one. And I think that's it. Thank you.
Councilmember Gibbons.
Thank you. I apologize. You did not probably see my questions.
I did see your
Oh,
questions.
you're good.
So I'm
I
ready.
didn't catch you blindsided.
No.
Thank you for that. My first question is that I reread things Monday night and Tuesday, and sometimes like new things pop up. So I apologize for the short notice. First question is, some people don't have computer savvy. So how might we help people with that?
Of course, thanks for the question. So while the policy does direct people to our online process to do reservation, we of course would welcome anyone to make an appointment to come into our office. We have had a reduction in staff, so we don't have a dedicated person to handle these reservations any longer. So we would, if they called us, we would absolutely make an accommodation so that they could come in and meet us in person, see the facility, and then go through the rental process with us in person.
So there's nothing in the document that prohibits people from coming in. That's basically what I'm asking, is if they don't know about looking online and they come in, there's nothing that prohibits them from.
Right. And a lot of our customers call first, and then we explain the process on how to go online. And if they indicate to us that they're unable to do that, we assist them at that point.
Perfect. Perfect. Thank you so much. Second question has to do with Senate Bill 1383. Which is our famous waste management, which we have 2 actively engaged council members at the JPA and county level. How I did, again, I looked for it and I didn't see anything, particularly under section 5 about garbage separation. And it, I mean, it's a big deal for staff to get involved in that. So what can you have your visitors take care of for you?
Yeah, so if I could direct the council's attention, it's easier to see the policy in the clean version. So on packet page number 751, and it's actually in section 4 is where this is labeled.
Okay, so I looked in the wrong place. Okay.
Number 5 towards the bottom of the page states cleaning the facility, and this is new text that we've added in, so this is in the red line version. Cleaning the facility requires rental clients to, quote, leave it as you found it, unquote. Rental clients are expected to place trash, recycling, and organics in the provided bins. Remove all decorations and guests by the time the permit end time. And then please see section 5 with some additionals. So section 5, B, 9, and 10 is actually very specific to alcoholic beverages. So it's very specific to recycling. But this is something that we did incorporate in. So I just want to make sure, because I know you were looking in another section. So we did capture that in the policy. And it is something that we go over with our rental clients when they check in with us with our building attendants during the check-in process.
Great. Thank you so much for pointing that out correctly. I did look in the wrong section, so
No
that's
problem.
great. I would just offer that the community center inside and out seems a bit dearth of having the proper bins and a sufficient number of bins. So I would encourage signage and capacity. And I can send you pictures of things I found at other cities. Thank you.
Noted, sure.
Any other questions of staff? Must have done a good job. Very simple. We'll open up to the public. Anybody from the public wishing to speak? Seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for discussion and or motion.
I just wanted to thank staff for the time and effort it takes to go through the policy page by page and update and bring us up to current practice. It's appreciated. I know that your recreation does a good job of updating policies as needed. And if there's no other discussion with that, I'll make a reservation. I'll make a motion that we adopt a resolution approving modifications to the Campbell Community Center's building use policy, making it effective August 16th, 2022, in coordination with the effective fee schedule.
Second.
Motion by Vice Mayor Bybee, second by Councilwoman Landry. Can we get a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Givens.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Resnikoff.
Aye. Thank you, Lauren. Appreciate it.
And
I just,
I'm sorry if I may just one
sure.
leftover comment. I just wanted to say that as Vice Mayor Bybee just said, it's really important for lessons learned to be incorporated and really make life easier for our residents and facility users and staff and council. And it really does help tremendously when lessons learned and updates are done so thoughtfully. So thank you.
Okay. And before we move to 14, I just want to check, are we okay motoring through this, or we've been starting at 6 for people who don't know. So does anybody need to take a quick break or stretch, or we could take 10 minutes? Is that, everybody's okay moving forward? We'll move forward. Great. So we go to item 14, consideration of canceling November 8th, 2022 city council election and appointing nominated candidates or proceeding with the election.
Mr. Mayor, before we get into the item, I just wanted to state for the record that I actually have a personal conflict in that I am a candidate in the District 5 election. And so therefore I'm going to recuse myself on this item to avoid any perception that my participation would be self-serving.
Okay, thank you. So we'll wait for you to do that and we'll bring you back for item 15. Thank you. Okay, thank you. So our presenter will be our city clerk, Andrea Sanders. It's all yours.
All right. Good evening, Mayor and council members. Tonight, we are asking the.
I need one of those assisted listening.
We'll be sure to get those figured out for you. So tonight we are asking the city council to either determine to cancel the November 8th, 2022 general municipal election or take no action and proceed with the election, as well as allow for write-in candidates. So as stated, a general municipal election will be conducted on November 8th to elect one council member from District 3, one council member from District 4, and one council member from District 5. The nomination period began on July 18th and ended Friday, August 12th, 2022. The following nomination papers were filed in the city clerk's office during the filing period and have qualified for the ballot. Dan Furtado for District 3, Elliot Scazola for District 4, and Ann Bybee for District 5. So pursuant to California Elections Code 10229, as there were not more candidates than district offices to be elected, the city council may consider one of the following courses of action. 1, you can appoint to the district office the person who has been nominated, or 2, appoint to the office any eligible voter if no one has been nominated, or 3, hold the election if either one or no one has been nominated. So additionally, the Elections Code also requires that a notice certifying the number of nominees be published. This notice is scheduled to be published in the Metro on August 17th. After the 5th day following the day of publication, the City Council may then hold a special meeting to make the appointments as well as adopt a resolution canceling the election. If by the 75th day before the election, which is August 25th, no person has been appointed to the district office, the election shall be held. So that means that if the council chooses to cancel the election and appoint the nominees, a special meeting would need to be held in between August 22nd and August 24th, 5 days after the certificate of facts is published and prior to the 75th day of the election. If the council chose to appoint, the city clerk shall not accept any filings for any statement or of write-in candidacy. If the 2022 election is canceled, the city may save an estimated $56,000 in costs. If the council chose to proceed with the election, no further council action would be required at this time. In addition to the ballot qualified candidates, a candidate write-in process is available September 12th through October 25th to interested Campbell residents who are 18 years old, a U.S. citizen, a resident of and registered voter in the district they are seeking to represent. A write-in candidate must also file nomination papers containing at least 20 signatures from registered voters residing in that district. So this concludes my presentation, and I am available for any questions.
Thank you very much. Are questions for staff? So I'll ask you just a couple questions just to clarify. So I think you said the write-in period, as we didn't know before, requires a registration and meeting the criteria, and that we don't have this option of waiting to see if there are write-ins. We decide today to cancel, there are no write-ins. We decide to wait to see if there are write-ins, we have an election.
That's correct.
Okay, and the other piece was we're at this unique thing of having an even number of people here, which always lends us to a 2-2. In this case, do I understand a 2-2 would essentially be a no action and just proceed as normal? Okay, just want to clarify that because we could get there. Okay, any other questions? Okay, we'll open the public hearing. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak on this? Come on up. Come on down. Thank you, Steve Saunders.
Steve Saunders, Campbell resident. Mr. Mayor, council members. This is a tough one because given everything that's happening in our country with people's concerns about elections and that, canceling one feels kind of wrong. On the other hand, spending $56,000, the city has finite resources on something that we already know what the answer is going to be seems a little wasteful too. So I'm glad I don't have to decide this, but it is troubling to cancel election. Thank you.
Incredibly well said. Thank you. Thank you very much. I don't have to say what I was going to say in a little bit. I'm just saying ditto. Anybody else in the public wishing to speak? And seeing none, we'll bring it back to council for discussion. And I'll comment right away. I agree 100%. This is just one of those things where you win either way and you lose either way, and it just stinks. And but I'm interested in hearing. I think there are reasons to do it. There are reasons not to do it, and we'll start with Councilmember Gibbons.
So I appreciate hearing from the public because that is exactly the dichotomy that we're facing in this discussion. So I will say that part of my considerations, and I look forward to hearing other councils discuss it. We had a very robust discussion about this back in June, was it June or July, whenever it was, specifically about, at that point, we had an applicant for only one out of the 3 districts. And we really had to discuss how we would manage the future of the city. And we didn't want it to be our personal choices, even though we'd love to determine who comes and replaces us, since I'm termed out. We recognized that that wasn't our role. And we had a very good discussion about that and the importance of having an election, rather than, at that point, an option was to just appoint from the public at large in the districts. And we had virtually no community input on that discussion. I think the council had a robust and very good discussion on the value of holding an election when there were no candidates, and when the council didn't want to just simply appoint. And the holding the election, allowing write-in candidates, seemed very much the right decision to make at that time. So where we are now with a single candidate in each district, I will say I worked very actively for the last year, trying to find and engage and mentor people to run for office. I was not successful. And the world is different. People running for political office now is not an easy thing for anyone to step into. It is a lot of work in addition to the reality of the politics in the world. So we have precedent, as indicated in the staff report in 2012. We had 2 candidates for 2 positions, and they were both incumbents. So the decision was not to hold the election. So I'm comfortable that there's precedent, although somewhat different because we're now in districts. I'm challenged by the fact that we had no one else step up, no one express interest, no one follow through, nothing. And I don't know who else we could appoint or encourage to run as a write-in beyond where we are now. So I'd like to hear other people's thoughts about basically about the public option to vote.
Councilmember Lopez?
Very well said, and well said by Mr. Saunders. Sums it up really well. And Councilmember Gibbons, your comments are spot on. I'll just add that for whatever reason we could theorize, but it's not just Campbell this year, this cycle that is in this position. In Emeryville, they actually had 2 districts where no one filed to run. There's across the Bear, there's many school board seats where no one has filed to run. So it's unfortunate. When we had that discussion, I was very passionate, spoke very strongly in favor of continuing the election, because I think we all value the public having a voice and democracy and representation. So it's a tough position to be in. I wish the circumstances were differently, but just I guess for me where I'm at, and I'm open to hearing other opinions, but just thinking through it pragmatically, I'm in favor at this point of proceeding with an appointment of the candidates, but open to other perspectives, recognizing that there's no perfect option here.
Councilmember Landry?
Thank you, Steve. Very well said. So I'm a pragmatist, but I'm also want to be fair. And what I see is that we did have a person from each district take the initiative, fill out the forms, collect signatures. Most of them had up to 30 signatures. They got support from their district people. They turned in the papers on time. So no one's running against them. So if I were the candidate right now, would I then still have a campaign if we were going to have go to the election on the outside chance that up to October 22nd, like 3 weeks before the election, do I have a campaign, spend my money, do all the effort, nobody writes in, and I win anyways? So do I wait, not campaign, do not spend more money, or do I take the risk and then not get elected? So to me, we had a deadline. It's like in school, you have a deadline. You don't get to turn your paper in 3 weeks late and still get an A. You turn the paper in late, you maybe still pass the class. So I'm of the, my opinion is that I think we need to appoint the people that did stand up and take the actions and did get the signatures. They do have support of their community. And that way it doesn't put them in a position of, do I run, or do I do this, do I do that? And then all of a sudden, 3 weeks before the election, someone signs up and now what do you do? Now I'm rushing around scrambling and campaigning. So I think it's appropriate because they do have support of their community that we support them.
Okay, thank you. I have to comment, huh? The only positive here is saving $56,000. That's the only positive. That's it, but that's the only positive I see. This is distasteful. I'm disappointed. I blame a lot of it on districts. I mean, districts have limited who can run when, but Councilmember Lopez is correct. There are areas where we have adjoining cities that have no term limits and people are not running again. They've been in 1 or 2 terms and they're just not coming back. They don't want to. So there's a distaste for this job. Here's what bothers me, that if we don't do that, I came in thinking let's not do it, but here's what bothers me. If we don't do it, then we invalidate any chance for a write-in. I don't know that a write-in can win, but we invalidate it. It's been commented before, I think Councilmember Gibbons did, you essentially have people that won't vote for 6 years. Now, they have someone to blame for that, right? Because nobody stepped up to do this, but it's still going to be a perception that they have been disenfranchised for 6 years. And the last piece triggered from something that Councilwoman Landry said, you know, why should they move forward? Because, well, the threat of a write-in makes people move forward and engage with their community and talk about some issues. And maybe it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect the vote, but it forces them to get out and do something. If I were in that position, worrying that in 6 weeks, somebody's going to come in, I'd start reaching out to people and start doing some of the things you have to do when you run. On a smaller scale, certainly, right? It's not a lot of money because the biggest expense to do this is mailings. It's always been mailings. And if you don't have to do that, the other part of reaching out and forums that we won't have, I'm inclined, I hate to say I'm inclined to move forward. And it seems like Steve's right. It's an absolute waste of $56,000 in the end result. But the message of not doing it and saying we're done and we don't allow write-ins and yeah, nobody wanted to run, so you don't get to vote for another 4 years. It's just distasteful to me. But that being said, I'm not unhappy if the vote is to. I realize from a pragmatic standpoint, that's probably the smart thing to do. I'm leaning right now to saying just go ahead because we should go through the process. And in the scheme of things, sometimes we spend money when we feel we shouldn't because it seems like the right thing to do. But I'm inclined to move forward, and I didn't think that way coming in. It's just from hearing the discussion. It's so distasteful to cancel it. And the last comment, I remember being here when council members Katowski and Baker, we canceled that, but they were both incumbents. And it's kind of like, we're going to talk about moving forward potentially with somebody on a committee that's an incumbent. It's different. It's different with incumbents, I think, than having open seats. And no offense to the 3 people that you know, of not appointing if we don't do that. I appreciate that they stepped up to do this. I'm just inclined to say move forward. Other comments? Councilwoman.
Yeah, there is some distaste to this. And
Yep.
Steve, I'll bring you up again. It's a difficult decision and we don't want to disenfranchise people, but at the same time, nobody stepped up. And so, you know, what's fair to the people who did step up? What's fair to the community? Okay, they don't get to vote for 4 years, but they had a chance now to step forward to have ability to have this election. So it is a very difficult decision, but I think people did step forward. They did get support of their community. They followed the deadline. They turned it in time. And it's almost like they get penalized because they did it in time, where someone else, they can wait almost a month or more than a month. And I mean, to me, it just seems like, you know, like I said, if you're in a class, you turn in the class report and you get a grade and, you know, we're asking, okay, well, I get extra credit or So, but it is the disenfranchising, and right now in our political climate that we're at, that is a difficult thing. But I even suggested the city manager that maybe there's something we write in the Campbell Press. I don't know if we can do that, but something that does bring this to the community's attention, because we're going to have another election in 2 years, and we should get people starting to think about what happens in 2 years.
No, I'll just comment if I can. I appreciate that. And that's, one of the reasons I asked about 2-2, because I wasn't convinced that we would have a decision either way. But so if I vote to move forward, I do it with distaste. I'm not happy with that, but it just may be, to me, the lesser of two evils, but I don't like it. If I vote for it to stop it, I don't like that either.
So I don't like that it's four of us. It has an advantage to having a fifth on many occasions, and this would be one. One of the other reasons I'm struggling with this is because the last time I switched, I was definitely not in favor of write-ins until I talked to some community members, educated myself on the value of an election, and heard what my colleagues here said. So I changed my vote to support allowing write-ins. So now I'm reversing myself if I vote to cancel the election. So I'm very cognizant of my mental processes here. I'm not so worried. I don't like the disenfranchisement and the 6-year vote, particularly since it's 3/5 of our city that is up 3 districts out of 5. It's very worrisome, but we didn't have anything to do with this, the blasted districting of our city. We were forced to do it by a legal lawsuit from a group in Texas. I mean, it's revolting. So there. I don't know.
I don't know if this helps or hurts, but let me say this. I'm inclined right now to move forward. If 3 people vote to cancel, I totally respect that and I understand it and I have no issue with it. And if somebody wants to join me, then it's moving forward, because you need 3 votes to not move forward, but only 2 votes to proceed. And I'm inclined to say proceed and do it so reluctantly. So, well, I tell you what, I'm throwing it on everybody else because the lack of 3 votes is moving forward.
Yes.
So right now I'm not willing to say cancel it. So I'm kind of saying it's up to the others to see if they're united. And I absolutely understand it if you are, and I absolutely support it. I just am not ready to be part of that.
So if I may, I'll just make one.
You might make honestly, you might make a motion to cancel it.
Yes.
And there are 3 votes or there aren't 3 votes. That might be the way to do it.
I'm hoping somebody can help me fall off the balance bar. It's going forward with the election. Does it have risks for the city?
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Sorry, going forward with the election, does it have risks for the city?
Does it, you're asking the question.
I'm talking, what's the right word? Asking myself rhetorically, does it have any risk for the city? And I think the risk going forward with the election is less than not going forward with an election. So I'm inclined to go forward. The hesitation I have is that, as I think Council Member Lopez said, I know Cupertino had a one-term council member who chose not to run again. I know that Los Altos Hills has unopposed candidates. I'm sure there are other places, I think, that I don't know, but there's a lot. And my question is, by not holding an election, are we facing up to the political environment here and reinforcing the negatives, the risks of the community feeling no engagement, no knowledge. I mean, participation at our community meetings has gone down to zero for all intents and purposes. Our whole housing element, we had 6 comments from people over a 30-day period. We had agencies comment, but only 6 residents. It just seems wrong not to encourage, participate, activate the community and who's getting elected to represent them.
I mean, my comment is that nobody should condemn anybody that decides to cancel this because there's a fiscal reason to do it and we know the result, and nobody should be condemned for moving forward because it just sends, to me, it's sending the wrong message. But I would say with people on the fence, if somebody is decided to cancel it, make a motion, put it out, and it passes or it doesn't pass, and then we know.
When I campaigned the first time and people asked me, where did I stand on a certain issue? I said, it's not so much where you stand on the issue, it's the verbiage and the language of the motion that you make. And until I hear every voice down to the last 5 seconds, I haven't completely made up my mind. I may have a way I'm swaying, but by people speaking, you can change my mind and you can convince me to vote a certain way. I'm listening to what's being said and I've changed my mind.
I feel like I should say me too. But I'm not going to. I'm not gonna, I'm just, no, I mean, if.
No, I heard what both you and Liz said about disenfranchising. I'm thinking about it even more. And in our political climate, maybe it is sending the wrong message to say you don't get to vote. And I was thinking more from the perspective of the people that did sign up early, and I was trying to give them credit for doing the right thing. But I believe in being fair. And so by hearing the argument and hearing this discussion, I'm now supporting and moving forward with the election.
Well, I'll say this about being fair. I mean, when going back over the last 3 elections of three wasn't districts, but 3 open seats, it was in reverse order, oldest 9, 6, and 5, I think. And that's not unfair that people have to compete. If somebody comes in late, they come in late. That's just part of the process. It's still going to be a lot easier than if you had 3, 4 people for one. But Councilmember Lopez, please.
I'll move forward. I mean, this is like a 50-50 decision for me, and you're right. Can't condemn someone on either side.
Heads up is clean and white, heads down.
So we need is there a motion, or I mean, if you want to make it, I'll make the motion. You tell me.
I'll make a motion that the city council take the following action. Take no action and proceed with the election and allow for writing candidates.
Well, actually, no action does it require a motion? It does not. If we don't take a motion to cancel it, we just leave it be.
Correct.
No
I was going to second your motion.
But no motion,
I
no
like the
motion needed.
idea
But we clearly don't have 3 people that want to cancel it anymore.
I like the idea of taking a positive action, so I would let my motion stand.
I take it that there's no negative to taking a vote.
There's definitely no negative to taking a vote.
We had a second, I think, or?
Yeah, I seconded
So
the
motion by
that we
Councilmember
proceed with
Gibbons.
the agenda or the election.
Second by Councilwoman Landry. Can we have a roll call vote?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Mayor Resnikoff.
Aye, thank you. So we'll move forward, and thank you for your comments, because it's not one, this is not one we like. We'll wait for which is the comment you made about running, and I agree with that. You have to.
Our
open
job
minds.
is to listen to all voices and not make a decision until we hear everybody speak. And I think that's what we did tonight.
Yep, I agree. So we'll wait for the vice mayor to return and we'll move on to item 15. Welcome back, Vice Mayor Bybee.
Thank you.
So we move unfinished business, which there is none. We go to council committee reports, but the first item before we go to reports is item 50. I'm saying that's under council committee reports. Right. But it's under the heading of committee reports, and then item 15, then we go to 16. So the appointments are always under committee reports. So 15 is approve appointment to the Civic Improvement Commission and reopen the recruitment to allow for additional applications. We have the advisory commissioner appointment committee, which is a vice mayor, I believe, and Councilwoman Landry. Which one of you like to present to us and tell us what the? Oh, actually, do we have to hear from the clerk first? Oh, it says it.
Yeah.
So if the committee members would want to tell us what they decided.
Yeah, so based on the direction from the council at the last meeting, the subcommittee of Councilwoman Landry and I met with one of the applicants, Chris Bracker, who is an incumbent and who is seeking reappointment. He has served a short term, I think a little under a year, maybe a year's term. And so we interviewed him and he was very enthusiastic and is seeking reappointment. And so based on the interview, the subcommittee is going to recommend that we reappoint or appoint Chris Bracker to an additional term on the Civic Improvement Commission. With regard to the other positions that are opening, we have one application and the committee's recommending that we keep the application period open until we receive a sufficient number of applications in which to interview for the remaining 2 positions that are currently, that will be vacant as of August 31st.
And is that target 3 applicants, or has that been discussed? Or
I'm sorry. Oh, for the
an
sufficient
ample
number.
of just I don't know, and I don't know what the number
We
should
didn't
be.
really come up with an ample number, just a sufficient number in which to interview. So.
Okay, but
And-
the committee could work that out with the clerk.
Yeah. And with that, if Councilwoman Landry has any additional comments.
I just would say we have a very enthusiastic person. They didn't serve a full term and we've had not a formal policy, but a informal policy of allowing people at least 2 terms, and he hasn't completed a whole first one. Very enthusiastic, longtime family in Campbell. I think really represents the longstanding history that they have, our lovely farm that they've left us. So I think Chris is a good appointment.
Okay, thank you. So at this point, let me open the public hearing. Is there anybody wishing to speak on this item? Seeing none, bring it back to, I'll just comment too, I'm very happy to have Chris back. He's a good person and he's been very involved in the community. So good to see he wanted to re-up. Any other discussion or motion?
Could I ask for clarification?
Sure.
So the first part of this is to make a motion to appoint Chris Bracker. Where is the second part of this to extend the opening? Is it all part of the same? It's all, you're
At the very end, reopen the recruitment.
Okay, so
Yeah.
I have a question on that. So I don't know why, but I'm drawing a blank. I thought the city clerk made the decision about extending the period. I didn't think that always came back to council.
I think it's been either or. I
okay.
believe that the city clerk has the discretion to extend the deadline until a sufficient number of applicants are received. But I think in recent years, it's come back to council for
direction.
for direction.
Yeah.
Okay, because I was very confused after our last meeting on saying it had to come back to council. Because I thought it was automatically the choice of the city clerk. So wouldn't hurt to get that clarified at some point. Okay.
It may have been an issue, if I may too, that we had to, because we had an applicant, we had to let it we had to let it expire, right? We couldn't
Mhm.
continue it without first appointing, then reopening. So this created a situation because we had an incumbent.
Ah.
If we didn't interview the incumbent separately, then we could have allowed the clerk to just continue it.
We haven't, just for, I won't tell you when, but we did have a past situation where we just kept it open and the incumbent. But this time, because if there wasn't someone on the commission, then they wouldn't be able to vote because they might not have a quorum. So there was a whole lot of dominoes here.
Right.
Okay, thank you for that discussion.
Okay.
And with that, I would make a motion. It is recommended that, okay. It is recommended that the city council approve the recommendation of the advisory commission appointment interview subcommittee regarding appointment to the Civic Improvement Commission for 1 4-year term expiring in August 2026 and reopen the recruitment until a sufficient number of applicants are received. And the 1 4-year term appointment is for Chris Bracker.
I'll second.
Motion by Council Member Gibbons, second by Vice Mayor Bybee. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Councilmember Gibbons.
Aye.
Councilmember Lopez.
Aye.
Councilwoman Landry.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Bybee.
Aye.
Mayor Resnikov.
Aye. Congratulations, Chris. Thank you for serving. Move to item 16, council committee reports. Who would like to start? Councilwoman Landry?
Yeah, it's really easy. Most of my committees that I'm on all took vacation in August and haven't had a meeting yet.
I'll go next. So I've been, a few months ago, I was appointed to the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, and they're having a lot of really important, exciting agency that does work managing pollution in the Bay Area. And they're having a lot of leadership transitions, as are a lot of agencies. I've been on the subcommittee for the recruitment process for their new executive, and so I had a meeting with the recruiter to that, and have been in a number of meetings as to what kind of executive we would want. So really exciting, a lot of big changes that are happening there, but certainly very involved. We also had a meeting of the subcommittee, the legislative subcommittee, and Councilmember Gibbons may want to say more, but we moved forward with recommendations on action for 3 bills, and staff did a great job of drafting letters, and I believe getting them out pretty quickly before some tight deadlines on some big issues. So it was very much appreciated. We had a brief meeting with the VTA Policy Advisory Committee that was essentially just a consent agenda. So moved very quickly.
Councilmember Gibbons?
Thank you. The Silicon Valley Clean Energy had a big month since we hadn't eaten since July. We missed the July meetings. We had a lot of things happening. The notes I have are that 2 clean energy resources began providing power to Silicon Valley Clean Energy customers in July. The first project is the Casa Diablo geothermal plant in Mono County. This resource will provide 7 megawatts, and it is the first new geothermal plant to be built in California's independent system operator in 30 years. So this is a big deal, diversifying our clean energy portfolio. So we're very, very excited about that. The second project is the repowering of the Mountain View Winds facility in Riverside County. It's going to provide us with 33 megawatts of power, which will meet about 3%. I mean, it's amazing. 33 megawatts only meets 3% of our annual energy needs. So every little bit helps. Affordable housing development policy statements and funding. The Silicon Valley Board of Directors approved a policy statement and reallocated funding to support equitable EV charging access to new affordable housing developments. This is significant, particularly in terms of the recent inflation tax, IR, inflation recovery, whatever, what's the word? Sergio, help me here. The new tax law that was just signed. Inflation Recovery Act, that's what it is. Yes, thank you. Which has a great deal of money for charging stations and EV purchases and reused EVs. So the idea that we are also providing charging access to new affordable housing developments is great. We're on track to be consistent with the goals of our country and being of specific help to here in our Silicon Valley community. And the 2022 new construction reach codes, you've heard me speak about this for a while. All of the member agencies in our jurisdiction are in the process of developing reach codes that will require new buildings to include electric features that promote healthier buildings while reducing both emissions and the cost of construction. We'll be hearing more about that when staff presents us with the California Uniform Building Code updates in October. I think that's when that's coming. So lots of very exciting. And we also did our budget. It'll be voted on officially next month to keep or increase our cost of power at less than PG&E. So I'll report on that next month to see if we can drop our prices a little bit more. And the Cities Association of Santa Clara County Legislative Action Subcommittee participated in the discussion of, I think it was 6 major bills, and the board council, Vice Mayor Bybee can speak to the board support of the recommendations of the legislative subcommittee. And I would just offer, as Council Member Lopez mentioned, we did have a legislative subcommittee meeting last week, and there's a lot happening at the state level. Bills are now on the floor. So anything that we've been encouraged by offices of Senator Becker, among others, to write directly to them and emphasize what we want to see changed, because the legislation that's now on the floor is likely to go through. There's a lot of pieces that we're not particularly supportive of. But if we can provide amendments to make them a little bit better for our community, we're encouraged to do that. And I appreciate that Councilmember Lopez last meeting identified that he has a new job at Silicon Valley Silicon Valley at Home. I'm going to always mix those up. Congratulations on your new position. I think I appreciated very much your choice of recognizing the potential conflict of interest on voting last week or last meeting's agenda for the housing element. And it's going to take a lot of concerted effort on your part moving forward to see what the legislative actions that you can participate in and the council actions you can participate in. So I look forward to working with you to make sure we are moving in the right direction on all of those matters. So that's it.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Bybee.
Thank you. I just wanted to mention that the Finance Subcommittee met last week to review the investment policy update, the annual policy update. And I wanted to mention that it was successfully updated and approved tonight on the consent calendar. And I also then attended the Cities Association Board of Directors meeting last week.
Okay, thank you. And I attended the West Valley Sanitation District Board meeting a little earlier. That would have been reported last meeting, SAVACA, where the Silicon Valley Animal Control Authority, which continues to maintain its no-kill shelter designation, returning average 98 to 99% of dogs, cats, and wildlife being back to the wild, back to the owners, or adopted out, which is a phenomenal record. I would have reported last time, I did have the honor of welcoming people to the Relay for Life. So it was nice to see people out there raising funds for American Cancer Society. And lastly, in Campbell, we did host the last mayors and managers meeting, and we hosted it over at Orchard City Kitchen. So everybody came to Campbell's. We're back to live and moving around city by city, which is how we used to do it. So with that, I think that's everything. With that, I will adjourn to the next regularly scheduled council meeting of Tuesday, September 6th, 2022. Thank you all.